So after this meeting, what happens? I mean, what do we do?
Okay, we will ask you to do a little homework for us after this meeting. To give us, what does the visitor do in your community type thing? What is the perfect day in West Point for a visitor? Just from the standpoint of getting that story of what helps identify your assets. And then we will compile a report with some photographs and maps, et cetera, and all the data that we gather through this workshop. And we make some recommendations for the community based on that input. And we'll be providing that report back to you. And it's taken us a long time on some of these projects to get them back to the community. But I am plowing through a few of them right now. Andrea, heads up, Lawrenceburg is ready for your review in the big red pen.
No, not until I get done with Aurora.
Well, you've got one in sync now. I'm working on Augusta, and then Beebe is the next one after that, and then I'm doing West Point. So I'm hoping that by the end of August, I'll be basically through with the draft of all these reports, and Andrea and Michael really help me with the editing aspect, and we get them back out to as well as Brewster and David review as well. But we'll get them back out to you, and then any changes you'd like to see, we can still make changes.
Right. Okay. So.
And then after that, Annette, we have a October 14th up in Lawrenceburg, Indiana.
Yeah.
Is a time to share between all of the different towns that we work with, as well as the other towns along the river. So that's sort of, hopefully there'll be some synergistic ideas between all of the towns that we work with. And so that's the process. It's called food for thought, fodder for thought.
Yeah, and that's going to be in person, isn't it? Hopefully.
That's that, at least as of now, it's in person, and it's the first time I'll get to meet Andrea. She can drive 5 hours from Cleveland on down there. And her bosses allow her to go out of her house.
We've never met.
You
I don't
never
believe
know
that. I don't believe that. No, you were at the Lawrenceburg meeting with the state agencies.
That's right.
Oh, you're right. You're right. I take it back. I did beat you when I went.
Apparently, he totally forgot about you.
I won't take that personally.
It will be the first time you get to meet Michael, though. Michael's going to join us.
Yes, it will be. Yeah. See, David, you could have come up. I saw Brewster this weekend. Like, he comes up here to see me.
I should. My sister lives up near there, and I should have come up and visited.
Hi, Annette. Good to see you again.
Hello. Good to see you.
Yes. I love your backdrop. That's a beautiful ceiling.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. My mom did the little quilt thing.
Cool.
And yeah.
I love it.
Does your house overlook the river, Annette?
No, but it faces the river, but there's a field in between. So when the water's up, I can see the barges. But in '97, it got in it, but not my main floor. I got like 3 inches from my main floor.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Hey, Derek Schimmel. He's muted. Like he's never done a Zoom call before.
What's happening?
Long time no see.
I know. How are you guys doing? It's staying busy, it seems. Cool.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. How about you out there?
Staying busy, not staying cool. It's been like 99 each of these last few days here, and I don't have a functioning air conditioning in my house, so pardon the seemingly moist forehead that I have.
It's like a sauna.
So Derek's in Boulder, Colorado, correct?
Denver, Colorado.
Denver. Oh, excuse me.
Right now. Yeah, I'm in Denver, and was actually out in Montana last week on the Lewis and Clark Trail, meeting with some partners. And David, this will be of interest to you. We did a little trial with Terrain 360 on the Missouri River. So we did a 47-mile stretch of the Missouri River. Essentially, what MPS is considering doing is building out like a Google Street View type thing for all the rivers along the trail. And this guy, Ryan Abrahamson, he built this rig. So it's like a, normal like tube that you'd float a river on with like a 10-foot pole that has 5 cameras facing in every direction. Yeah. And it takes a picture every 40 feet. And the product's unbelievable. I mean, essentially it's like a better version of Google Street View for all the rivers. So in addition to like virtual reality tourism, this can be used for like community partnerships of like, where do we want to build a boat ramp, or climate change, which is like, here's what the water level is here. What's it like in 5 years? And here's what the rocks and geology is looking like. So really, really excited about the potential there.
I think I saw that in use up in Michigan.
Yep.
I don't know if you're aware of any of
That's where he was. That's where he's done a lot of his work, is Michigan. I'm sure.
Yeah. I saw that on a water trail up there, and blew me away. It was like, it's crazy. It's
amazing. It really is amazing. He's such a unique guy. Like it's all him. He's built the whole thing himself, and I feel like you have to be like a little bit quirky to find success with something like that. But it's amazing. And for me, like, the tourism part of my brain is like, we can do this for the whole river system. We can do this biking it. Somebody can put a backpack on their back and bike it. Somebody can do it driving it, walking it. Like, we can build out a whole virtual forum of this trail. It really.
Well, to tie this back into West Point, when I spoke to him, I invited him to the October 2nd and 3rd Chautauqua, and said it'd be great for him to be able to do part of the Ohio River before then, and he could feature it at the October 2nd, 3rd Chautauqua. Is that going to work out for Derek?
So, I mean, probably not, I would say. I think the biggest thing right now, he has the time, but what I learned floating with him is like, this is a much bigger cost than I thought. So, what our hope is that we can kind of plant the seeds with it inside of MPS, and then we can take on logistics for it, because in addition to paying for it, there's a lot that has to be done, from shuttling everything to making sure that there's different raft guides available that can tell us what the sections of the rivers are like, and driving from place to place. There's just, if we were just talking the Ohio River, Missouri River, Snake River, and Columbia River along Loose Car Trail, we're talking like right there, a couple of years. And I don't even know, I would say at least 6 digits.
Well, he told me $150 a mile.
So, and how long is the Ohio River?
Only 981 miles, but it's $150 per side, because as soon as it goes over 40 feet, you have to do both sides. So it's $300 a mile.
Right. That's the only other part of it.
MPS is a bit wealthy. We're starting to have people sign on here, and so welcome. We're going to get started in a couple minutes. We're just chit-chatting about the Lewis and Clark Trail. And so it's an exciting little deal, and looking forward to our conversation. And we just have a couple minutes left. While we're waiting, if everybody could end the chat, which is down at the bottom, your name and contact information and who you're representing. And so if everybody could do that, that'd be great, because this is just going to be recorded, and we want to make sure we get everybody's names who's participating. We just have a couple minutes. Anything else for the good of the order, Andrea or Russ, before we get started?
No, give it another minute or two, and we'll get going.
Well, it's right at 4 o'clock. My name's David Wicks, and I'm one of the co-chairs of the Kentucky or the Ohio River Recreation Trail. And it's a pure pleasure to be working with West Point and with the Rivertown Review. I've spent a lot of time there. I am just excited to see how all these pieces fit together, and to sort of have an official conversation between National Park Service folks, the Ohio River Recreation Trail, and the town of West Point. We have several people online, and I just wanted to have them introduce themselves briefly, and then I'm going to turn the show over to Annette, who's going to introduce people there. So I'm just going to start off at the top of our list here. Once again, my name's David Wicks, and I'm a retired educator for the Jefferson County Public Schools, still teach at the University of Louisville, and run a place in Louisville called the River City Paddle Sports. And it's a pleasure to be here. And Andrea, who are you?
I'm Andrea Ireland. I'm with the National Park Service Rivers Trails Conservation Assistance Program. I am located in Ohio at the Ohio Field Office in Cuyahoga Valley National Park, but I work all over Ohio and Indiana and helping you folks out down on the Ohio River.
How about you, Brewster?
So I'm Brewster Rhodes. I live in Cincinnati, and I'm the co-chair along with David of the Ohio River Recreation Trail, and I'm on the board of and helped to start an organization called Adventure Crew, which gets urban teens out into nature. And I live part-time on a houseboat right on the Ohio. Wonderful to be with you all.
And Eric?
Hey everyone, I'm Derek Schimmel. I'm with Solomar International. Solomar is a tourism consulting firm, tourism and marketing consulting firm. As the name suggests, we work a lot internationally with a lot of emerging destinations, but we're lucky enough to be teamed up with the National Park Service and the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail. So a lot of unity with the ORRT and the team here. Nice to meet everyone.
All right. Russell Clark.
Russ Clark, landscape architect with the National Park Service Rivers Trails Conservation Program. I'm stationed in Kentucky out of Mammoth Cave, and it's a pleasure to be here.
And the last part of our crew here is Michael Schilling.
Hey everyone, I'm Michael Schilling, community planner with the National Park Service RTCA program as well, and I'm based out of Atlanta, Georgia.
All right, thank you. So that's our crew, and Annette, I'm going to turn it over to you, and then we'll just go and do a little bit more housekeeping. But who do you have online, and who are you, Annette?
Okay, my name's Annette Baker. I am part of the West Point City Council, and I was the contact person for the West Point River Review. And it looks like, I believe this first person on here, hopefully, I think it's Connie Morse. She's involved with Fort Duffield and a lot of other activities in West Point. She's a really good person to have on any committee. She's really knowledgeable in a lot of things. We have Donna McCreary. She's in charge of the Chautauqua. Another good person to have on any committee. She's knowledgeable in a lot of things. She has put together a lot of the horse activities that come to West Point, and a lot of the she's been on the school board, and just a good person to have, you know, with you on anything. Gary Masterson, he's part of Fort Duffield, West Point Revitalization. He's Donna McCreary's on West Point Revitalization also. Gary Masterson is, he runs a lot of things, got his hand in everything. Jill Mallory, yeah, everybody knows him. I think he's part of, he's helping with our Chautauqua. He's part of the, oh my gosh, my mind just went blank. Somebody chime in there. And
Lewis and Clark Foundation.
Right. Yes, thank you. Maddie Hartley, she's a citizen. She's on our code enforcement board. And there's Richard Shirisi. He's part of our city council. And on a lot of committees, every committee we have, he's on. He's a really knowledgeable person. There's, I'm thinking this is Janice, I never can say her last name. Okay.
Eberins. It took me a while. It took me months. So don't feel bad.
Thank you, Janice. She owns a beautiful home here in West Point that is she's restoring to be an Airbnb. She's part of revitalization. She's doing the trails that we have. She's part of Fort Duffield, everything here in town. She's and she's great to have. We're so happy to have her in town. Roselle Moore, she's part of all committees in town. She's on planning and zoning in town. She's part of my church, and she's
little bit of everything.
Everything. She's everything, and I think that's pretty much it. And I think we have more than 5. And I hope I didn't miss anybody that signed in late.
Is there anybody else online who has not been introduced? Well, Andrea, if you could start the slideshow, that'd be great. We have a small little project here. Bottom line is we're just excited to be with West Point, and we're excited to really engage with you to sort of think about the next couple of years at West Point, and what can one do to enhance outdoor recreation, tourism, and the quality of life in town. You know, we call it a second set of eyes. So next screen, please there, Andrea. And so this is sort of our agenda. We just did our welcomes. Then Brewster's going to talk a little bit about our overall Ohio River Recreation Trail and our work, and introduce RTCA formally for everybody. And then we want to talk about the Lewis and Clark Geotourism Project. And then we're going to jump into the major part of the program, and it's the SWOT analysis, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So as you're listening to the beginning introduction pieces, start to think about, you know, those sentence-long pithy ideas that can describe the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and threats there at this point. The more articulate we can be. And then I jump in again and talk a little bit about what our observations were from the desktop review and the site visit. And then we spend the rest of the time really in brainstorming and how we can, you know, what are the short terms and long-term initiatives that we really want to take on. And then we end up with a little question. So next page, please. Make sure you sign into the chat. So we're going to be using this chat pretty regularly down at the bottom. And so you want to add your name and email and anything else. We're going to save the chat. So if you have observations, if you're somebody who, you know, is a random thinker, put it in the chat and we'll deal with it later on and ask any questions, anything else. Next page, please. And so we want to turn the show over to Brewster Rhodes, who's our co-chair up in Cincinnati. And if you haven't been up to Cincinnati, it really is upstream of West Point, upstream of Louisville. And they have a wonderful festival coming up in 2 weeks called Fest. And Brewster happens to be the founder of it. So Brewster, why don't you give an overview of the river and the recreation trail?
Well, thanks, David. Appreciate it. And thanks to all of you for joining today. And I had a wonderful time visiting West Point with David and others on our team. You have a beautiful community with so many things going for you already. And hopefully we as fresh eyes on your community can help with your engagement, identify some things that are low cost, no cost, that could be done that would further build on your assets to make your community even more attractive for people interested in outdoor recreation, whether it be paddling, power boating, cycling, as well as people who use cars to visit communities along the Ohio. So I'm retired, but for the last 40 years, I've been a regular paddler on the Ohio. I lived part-time on a houseboat in the city of Cincinnati and started this event 20 years ago. That's now become the biggest paddling event in the country right here in Cincinnati. Come on up on the 7th of August. You'll see 2,000 people paddling down the Ohio in the greater Cincinnati area. But I'm a river rat. I just love what the river represents, the history, the culture, the incredible, unique, beautiful communities, including yours, along the river that were founded because of your relationship to the river, whether it was for transportation, for for agriculture, for all kinds of reasons, just going back to wars that happened over the years. But one of the things we're trying to do is to create a sense of place between Portsmouth and West Point, and you are the southernmost point of our 274-mile trail. But to create a sense of place, if this is a corridor that is a destination for people, not only those who live in the region, but throughout the Midwest, and for that matter, the entire country, a place that people can be incented to come to, spend 2, 3, 4 days traveling by car, by boat, by bike, exploring the unique river communities, spending money in those towns, learning about their unique history and cultures, their food, and doing what people are increasingly wanting to do now, which is not to fly to Europe or to the West, or even out to Colorado to visit Derek and have a vacation in the Rockies, but to travel regionally or locally to explore their own backyard. It's more manageable, it's safer, and it's just more accessible to folks. And so we have a vision of creating a trail that, as I say, ultimately becomes a nationally designated water trail with land trails for folks who cycle and want to exercise and explore that way. That will then be marketed all over the country as a place, if you're interested in rivers, come and explore our river, explore our unique communities, spend time, spend money, and promote this region as a place that has an incredible natural resource asset. So we've been working for the last 2.5 years. We're all volunteers. We don't have a budget, actually, but we've leveraged incredible energy and time by a real incredible number of experts. We have a steering committee that meets on a regular basis, and we decided to apply to the National Park Service for what we call a technical assistance grant, which is not money, but it's the incredible, valuable technical assistance and time of two wonderful people and others behind them, Russ and Andrea, who over the last 1.5 years have been helping us build the organization, develop the vision, and help us develop an operation that will be sustainable over time. So we've developed a vision, which very simply is that the Ohio River is an accessible and welcoming recreation corridor with vibrant towns, yours included, of course, connected by land and water trails. And our mission as an organization is to facilitate world-class outdoor adventure opportunities through partnerships that promote healthy recreation, education, stewardship, and economic development for Ohio River communities. And I should point out, as I mentioned, that you are, we always talk about Portsmouth to West Point. You are the southern terminus of our route here. And so it was great to actually visit your community after talking about you so often as we describe what the trail is about. So the partnership with the National Park Service is unique. In Cincinnati, there's no other presence by the National Park Service except for the William Howard Taft House, which is a historical place run by the National Park Service. So it's a big deal for us to have the National Park Service be engaged with this project. We've done a number of things. We've held meetings throughout the region on our Rivertown Review program, which will be discussed by Andrea and Russ, which we're doing right now with you, our most recent entity. We developed the digital guide to the Ohio, which we'll explore in a little bit, which is a very unique tool and won a national award just 2 months ago. It was developed by the Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana Regional Council of Governments for us at no cost to us, but as a model for every other river in America, for helping identify digitally where marinas and fuel docks and boat ramps and campgrounds, et cetera, are to assist travelers, whether they're in the river or on the shoreline, navigate their way along the way. But ultimately, we see us helping to, working with communities like you to help make them even more attractive for folks who have resources, want to recreate regionally, doing challenging, interesting outdoor activities, and for us to drive people to your community. So I want to turn it over now to our colleagues with the National Park Service. Andrea and Russ have been just marvelous. They do this kind of work throughout the Midwest. And actually, am I supposed to turn it over to? No, I need to turn it over. Yes, I need to turn it over to Andrea. So Andrea, why don't you take it away?
Thank you, Brewster. Yes, you've heard all of us introduce ourselves from this very long named program of the Park Service, Rivers Trails Conservation Assistance. And a lot of people don't even know that the Park Service has such a program, but we are the community outreach arm of the Park Service. So we take the the mission of the Park Service, go out into communities. They don't even have to be national park communities. And we help them to help themselves to realize success in terms of recreation, conservation, and community engagement. We all bring different skills to the table. Some of us are landscape architects. Some of us are outdoor recreation planners. There's about, I think currently 50 of us across the country working in various states and communities. And we help you to achieve on-the-ground successes in terms of recreation and connecting communities. The one of the parts of this project that Russ and I have been involved in, and we've also brought in Michael Schilling, who's on here, and Helen, who is not, Helen Sievers. We developed the Rivertown Review Program in working with David and Brewster, because we wanted to take a deeper dive into the communities that are all along the Ohio River and help them to see how they could better be capturing the resources of the Ohio River in terms of recreation and connecting communities for themselves, especially in light of COVID. You know, we started this program right in the middle of the pandemic, and a lot of the talk was, how are we going to come back from this? How are we going to get those visitors back here? Well, how can we demonstrate that we are valuable to a wide variety of people, our little town along the Ohio River? How can we capture those benefits? And so the Rivertown Review process includes an application which you filled out, and then we selected communities. We did one round of 3 communities, sort of. One had 3 towns in it, and then we had your town send us some information that we requested. We did a desktop review, which David Wicks talked about and we'll touch on further. That's looking at your digital presence on the computer, what other people see when they come to look for you. We did a visitor assessment. A few people on our team came to look at what your town has. And we're doing this community input meeting where it will be interactive and we are getting ideas and information from you. Then what we're going to do is put that all together into a report and put our recommendations on it from our years of experience, our work in other communities, things that we're seeing across the country that may help you to focus in on how to better capture those opportunities along the Ohio River. So that's the whole thrust of the Rivertown Review program. You are the last one of the second set of communities that we've done, and we will be having a Rivertown Summit in October. That will be all the communities that we have done Rivertown reviews for, and a lot of other additional people who are interested in developing these resources along the Ohio River. So another way that the National Park Service overlays with the Ohio River Recreation Trail is through the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail. And some people that live on the Ohio River don't even know that the Lewis and Clark Trail is also on the Ohio River. Well, Jim Mallory doesn't count because he certainly knows. But to talk a little bit more about this and how it is being activated on this eastern expansion is Derek Schimmel, who introduced himself earlier. So Derek, want to take it away?
Yeah, thank you, Andrea. Hello again, everybody. Just to take a step backwards, I want to make sure everybody understands, because this was news to me when I first came on this project a couple of years ago. People know the National Park Service with the parks that they run. So you have Yellowstone, Shenandoah, Acadia, Glacier, you know, these big Rocky Mountain National Park here in my backyard. These are the parks that people know about. What people often don't know is that the National Park Service are also stewards for many historical and heritage trails around the U.S., one of which is the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail. It follows the route of Lewis and Clark from the Core Discovery through what was once from Wood River, Illinois to Astoria, Oregon. As a result of an act of Congress in May of 2019, the eastern expansion was added, linking the trail from Pittsburgh all the way to Oregon, which is why we're now included with ORT, some other partners all along that eastern expansion part. So the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail has been around since the early 1970s. And what makes them unique is that they don't own any of the land where the trail runs through. It's completely dependent on partnerships with folks like yourself, with destination management organizations, chambers of commerce's, mayor's offices, state tourism offices, and then the actual places inside of these communities themselves. So it's the restaurants, beds and breakfasts, museums, discovery centers, nature centers, all those wonderful places that make your community unique. The reason we were brought on to build out this, what we call geotourism methodology, is because we want to link the past to the present in this project. What the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail has done a wonderful job of over the last 3 plus decades is building out that cultural heritage, those interesting sites and attractions where Lewis and Clark were, where they camped, where they hunted, where they ate. It really is an incredible story for me who loves going hiking, reading these journals and reading the stories. These guys were just, frankly, for lack of a better word, super badass. They explored all the way out west. They had next to nothing with them, and they really, you know, defied all odds by finding the Pacific Ocean and making it back home. But what we're doing, what MPSS tasked us to do, is kind of usher in a new generation. So we have all of these great historical sites, cultural sites. We want to link up with a newer generation so that when people are traveling along the trail, they can not only see what Lewis and Clark did when they were in a particular place, but also see those current cultural attractions as well, be it a distillery in West Point, a brewery in Bozeman, Montana, a fishing guide out in Idaho, you know, fantastic restaurants across the board, different hotels, beds and breakfasts, scenic drives, you know, all of those kind of unique places that make your place unique. And it's especially encouraging now with all of the domestic tourism that's going on. You know, people want to get into that heartbeat of America and kind of steer away from the city. So we're really well positioned. It's great timing to have this happening. I'm going to share my screen very quickly, if you can allow me to do so, Andrea. Thank you. I'm always so scared that I'm going to like show something that I shouldn't be showing, but this time we're showing the right thing. So this is what the website looks like. What we're encouraging everybody to do is add their sites to this map. So it's a really easy to use interactive map. And this is all the different places that we've partnered with. Again, hotels, beds and breakfasts, restaurants, museums, nature centers, discovery centers, all of those great places are what make this product unique. So that if somebody's traveling through West Point, they can see what Lewis and Clark did, or in this particular case, probably Meriwether Lewis when he was there, and then be able to come onto our site, know where they can go for a great local bite to eat, stay a couple extra days, keep the money inside of the community, really focus on that idea of sustainability through economic development, keeping the money local inside of the community, and then cultural heritage preservation as well, which is keeping those stories alive, all while celebrating what you have right now. And with that, I am going to share, we just launched this video about a week ago. So I think that for Andrea and Russ and some of the other folks, this is actually their first time seeing it. This kind of really gives you a great framework of what it is we're doing and why we're doing it. So I'm going to click play here and hope that you all enjoy.
From 1803 to 1806, Meriwether Lewis and William Clark led an expedition across the continent from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to the Pacific Ocean.
Preserving the cultural heritage is a big part of what we're doing along the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail. So many of the stories that exist tell the real-life tales of what it was like of the Louisiana Purchase and the whole western portion of the United States. And through geotourism, we're bringing together the past with the present by linking up those historical sites with current attractions, from the breweries to the restaurants to the beds and breakfasts, the museums, historical centers, nature centers, all of these great sites and attractions that are along the trail.
From the Heinz History Center, you can see the starting point of the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail. It's right there where that green triangular park is. We call it Lewis and Clark Park, and that was the site of the U.S. Wharf in 1803.
There's so many different elements of adventures that people can partake of, and experiencing the Lewis and Clark aspects of the trail. And so being able to really make people aware of those little nuggets that they might miss if they didn't already know. That's really what I enjoy about it.
I am standing right here at the archaeologically verified campsite on the Lewis and Clark Trail. We now host thousands of Lewis and Clark visitors, and they visit our famous latrines and cook fires. So yes, we do know who pooped in our park.
It's really important to, as the Lewis and Clark Project is trying to do, really highlight things that have evolved or changed, or really tell the story in a new way with new narratives. And so our job and our purpose is kind of to bring out why this region is so special today, and it's really about the people here. So it's not necessarily focusing on the urban sprawl, urban environments, but is really getting you off the beaten path into these really special rural small communities that all have amazing things to offer.
Just like Lewis and Clark, travelers can gain a deeper appreciation of the history of the American continent by exploring many of the same tribal communities that interacted with Lewis and Clark. Stay in a bunkhouse and explore ranching life from the perspective of Lakota cultural land stewardship. I encourage you to dive deeper into the history of the place we call home and explore the cultures of these nations that existed long before Lewis and Clark took their first steps west.
Well, I think the history of Lewis and Clark, the expedition, what's so fascinating or attracts people to it is that idea of exploration.
We are encouraging people to come and explore the history, the natural beauty, and the excitement and the adventure of the river. You can do it by bicycle, you can do it by canoe or kayak or a motorboat, to reflect upon the beauty of the river, to reflect upon our history, to reflect upon how we can work together to enhance the visitor's experience in each one of these river towns.
This area is where William Clark and his crew sort of came through on their way back. Here you had wonderful badlands, so you had these big hills of sandstone, siltstone, claystone of different colorations. In some regards, it feels like you're walking on another planet, and I just find that absolutely amazing.
Here at the Falls, Ohio, we offer many attractions. One of the most prominent one is the one you see right behind me. It is the Lewis and Clark handshake statue.
Something that's really special about the efforts and this endeavor to really memorialize and make accessible the full length of the Lewis and Clark Trail is it tells such a central story to the identity of America, but also the identity of North America and how this land has been nurtured or taken or nourished over time. And so being able to contribute in a way where we can continue to tell those stories, learn from them, and potentially shape the future of this region, I think is pretty special.
I guarantee you that if you practice, you can learn to read well the run-on sentences the captains indulge themselves in. And that when you do, you will have your children or friends or parents or whoever is sitting around that campfire leaning forward just a little bit, listening intently so as not to miss a word. Like you, like me, like every American, they want to know what happened next.
Learn more at www.lewisandclark.travel.
So that's the video. I think it really gives a good idea of what it is we're trying to do, and also why we're linking up with the Ohio River Recreation Trail, and Andrea and Russ and their team. You know, it's the people, it's you guys that make the place unique. It makes it special. We want to be able to tell your stories in the way that you want them told. So, you know, we'll follow up with some information of how to get involved for those of you that are not already part of this, but we'd love to have you on board on this map. It's a completely free opportunity, fully funded by MPS, and yeah, I appreciate the time, and feel free to reach out to me with any questions. Andrea?
Thank you so much, Derek. A beautiful video. That was the first time I saw it. I had no idea David Wicks had a starring role in that. So
he is the star. That's what everybody's been saying. Who is that guy from Ohio? He's amazing.
Well, first of all, I'm from Kentucky, but that's okay. And secondly, the interesting thing is the cabin, we call it the Clark home site right there at the Falls of the Ohio. And it was a replication of the cabin that was there since Clark lived there, but it burned down, unfortunately, arson the day after I took that photo or had that video made. So that's the last image you'll see of the Clark cabin there at the Falls of the Ohio. A tremendously unfortunate process, you know, terrible thing, but
yeah,
it was a success.
Thank you very much, Derek. I think that that gave everybody a real idea of what could be possible for your community and the extent of the Lewis and Clark Trail, and how perhaps you could be embracing that story, the story of Lewis and Clark, and all of the resources that the National Park Service has for the Lewis and Clark Trail as a national trail. We have another way to engage in, sorry, trying to multitask here, in the efforts of the ORRT, and Brewster had mentioned it, and now he's going to talk a little bit more about the digital guide. I think that's Brewster, but he's on mute.
I'm sorry. So are you going to pull up the digital guide?
I wasn't planning
okay, no problem. Well, the bottom line is if you go to our website, which is OhioRiverRecreationTrail.org, very simple, you will see a button upper right-hand corner for the digital guide. Click on that, and a couple of other clicks, you get into this. Basically, it's a GIS map that focuses on the recreational amenities along the Ohio from West Point up to Portsmouth. And we have identified digitally here all the marinas, the fuel docks, the boat ramps, the campgrounds, parks that are adjacent to or close to the river. We've identified the various tributaries of the Ohio. Obviously, the streets and other sort of features are identified. We also have on here the sail line, which is the red portion in the middle of the river. That's the area that barges travel. So if boaters are in the river anchored, say they're off from a musical venue, we have one up in Cincinnati, a place, you know, it's right on the river. A lot of boats are out there listening to concerts. If they're in the red zone, they better move because they could easily get run over by a barge. This digital guide also has what's called the AIS system built into it. So you can see where the barges are in real time, what direction they're going in, the name of the barge, the speed that the barge is going. And every 15 seconds that gets updated. So in real time, you will know exactly where barges are as commercial traffic on the Ohio, which if you're a paddler or a power boater is extremely useful and helpful. Plus it's fun to know what the history or name of that towboat is. But you will have, as you're going down the river or as you're riding on a bike, a little blinker that shows where you are in real time. Your locator will be on, so it shows where you are in relation to all these other amenities. You can click on and a picture will come up and it'll be a link for more information. So it's an extremely useful tool for people who are paddling, power boating, riding a bike, or in a car, so they can plan trips in advance from their home, because it also includes places folks can stay. as well as riverfront restaurants and other amenities that a community has, like your beautiful park. And what a gorgeous facility you have there. So anyway, that's enough of it, I think. I guess the bottom line is this tool, as I mentioned, got a national award just 2 months ago, developed by the Ohio, Kentucky and Indiana Regional Council of Governments. And you are able to update it without us doing anything. So there's a way to add a point of interest on the map in West Point. So we look to you to help fill out and build out the amenities that you want other people to know about in your community, so that when they try to plan a trip, they'll be able to learn more about what they can do when they go there. So that's it. I'll move it right along. But thank you.
Thank you, Brewster. And you see on the screen, which I'm sharing, that is a screenshot from the digital guide of your community, an overview. So you can see there's lots of opportunities for you to populate this with more points of interest and amenities that people on the river or on the shore might be interested in. For another aerial view, we're gonna hand it over to Russ Clark, and he's going to talk about the maps from an aerial perspective and what's upstream and
Thank you,
downstream.
Andrea. Yes, I always start by looking at Google Maps, and West Point is 27 river miles downstream from Louisville. And between Louisville and West Point, there are 2 existing access sites along the Ohio River, one at the Greenwood access and the other is the Shawnee Park access. Both of those are one's at 20 miles upriver and the other is at 11 miles upriver. And looking a little further, I investigated it downstream from West Point. 8 river miles is the Otter Creek Outdoor Recreation Area, and then the Brandenburg Park access over in the community of Brandenburg. And 8 river miles is a nice day trip. And so you are well situated with your current launch site for downstream paddling based on the distances on the river for following the recommendations that the National Park Service uses. What we do need to work on with the other organizations is more access upstream so that West Point can become a destination from coming downstream on the river as well. Next slide, please. As we look at West Point, you have, the Fort Duffield Historic Site, you've got the Veterans Memorial Park, you've got the West Point Boat Ramp Site as public spaces, and there's more areas that are public spaces than this map shows. I'm aware of that. We've got the Dixie Highway, which is a real challenge for West Point with the volume of traffic that really divides this community in 2 halves. And then you've got a mixed-use district on the original corridor there. And there's a vacant school site that has some real possibilities for the future as well. Next slide, please. As we look at this region in other details, from the riverfront, your front door is that Salt River access to the Ohio and the Veterans Memorial Park. That is your front door from the river. And then just going upstream slightly on the Salt is your access site. Fully understand there's some repairs that are needed there, but location-wise, you have a protected access site from the standpoint of the main flow of the Ohio River. So that's a very important component for considerations. Next slide. One of the key points here has occurred recently in West Point is the John Muir Legacy Trail project. The West Point Revitalization Committee has moved forward from a study that was done back in 2017 by a consultant looking at different possibilities and kind of birthed the idea of the John Muir Legacy Trail project connecting into West Point. So the John Muir 1,000-mile walk to the Gulf in 1867 is the pattern that we're using is to try and follow a corridor that John walked through that period of time. And we're going to try and create a possibility of different communities coming together to fulfill the connections of this corridor. Next slide, please. The first step for the West Point Revitalization Committee is the section from just a little bit north of West Point to where the 100-mile Louisville 100-mile loop currently is in place. And then going south to Elizabethtown, it's approximately 30 miles of distance in there. And we're exploring different alternative routes to make that connection happen as another RTCA project in progress. And at this point, I would like to really ask Janet if she would just give us a quick overview of what's coming forth in October so that the whole team that's not familiar with West Point can be aware of the importance of this event. Janice, could you share a few minutes with that?
Sure. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
all right. So in keeping, as Russell has mentioned, with the community vision session back in 2017, which led to our RTCA grant request and acceptance for the planning of the John Muir Legacy Trail. 2 years ago, we did a first local trail experience to try to build on the support of the community and the broader region to spread the knowledge about what West Point had to offer and the vision that we have for connecting the natural resources, the trails. For those of you who haven't been there, there are mountain bike trails around the Civil War fort. It's forested areas to 2 other beautiful trails, which are just across Dixie Highway from the traditional town farm area. So we started with a 5K 2 years ago, and it was a hike run type event. Last year with COVID, we still did it and we expanded it to be a hike, bike, paddle. My new thing is to say hike, bike, paddle, gallop. It's easier than equestrian. So that we expanded to that last year, which was really exciting because we had equine trail advocates come out, mark trails, build support, help us get a bigger vision for that component. So this year, Jim Mallory suggested that we consider expanding also into sharing more about the history and the culture of the region in conjunction with our trail events. So in October, actually the weekend before, the last weekend of September, we will have probably the horse events will happen that weekend, and potentially we're still kind of waiting to see. We might have some paddling opportunities with kayak and canoe rentals that last weekend of September. And then the first weekend in October is when we are going to have our first Chautauqua. It's Historic Trails Chautauqua, and it's really shaping up to be just really fantastic. So we'll still have trail events that weekend as well in the morning time on Saturday and Sunday, and with some history walks in town, a guided bike tour each day from town underneath the highway and railroad bridge over to the historic Fort Duffield, where they will tell some information about the fort. And we'll still have the hike run opportunities. And we have living history educators lined up for both days, 4 hours, 4 different time slots each day. And they are focusing on these trails, the John Muir Legacy Trail coming through West Point, the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail, and the new Ohio River Recreational Trail. So in a nutshell, the Chautauqua, we hope it's going to be just a great, really fun event with food truck, beer sale truck, all that kind of thing. But the focus is still on developing these natural and cultural and historic assets there along the 2 rivers, starting with the Native American heritage that, was here before the rest of us. And we're excited. We now know that we have a female Native American who's going to come and do history and folklore and a flute, a mixed programming. We will have Jim Holmberg, historian at the Filson Club.
Janice, could I stop you there for, if I may? We're running a little behind on our schedule. So thank you for filling us in on that. It's an important event for the community. Next, I'd really like to try and get into you telling us about your town. We're going to initiate a SWOT analysis. We're going to look at what are the issues related to internal origins, such as strengths and weaknesses, and external, such as opportunities and threats. And to do this, we're going to utilize an online technology. And next slide, please. It's the Merrill technology. So please get ready to engage your computer. So I'm going to turn it over to Michael now to kind of lead us through what the steps are so you can interactively do Post-it notes on a whiteboard and we can do this in real time. Michael?
Thank you, Russ. So I posted in the chat to everyone a link that will take you to our mural program where we'll start our SWOT analysis. It'll be a web-based program, and so we'll probably have Andrea stop sharing her screen as well to make that easier. And you will come in and you'll be assigned an animal, and you can put your name in there if you'd like to, but otherwise it's totally fine to just be the animal name. And yeah, we'll start with strengths first.
So if you click in the box of strengths, a little Post-it note will appear and you can type in that Post-it note. And when we start thinking about strengths, I'd like to have you think about things to build on for West Point, things that your community does well. What are your unique resources as a strength in West Point? What qualities separate you from your competitors?
Hey, Russ?
Yes, go ahead.
Can we make sure that everybody got in there, or if they need
Absolutely,
any help?
yes. Let's make sure we've got everybody in there, and everybody do a Post-it note.
And to do a Post-it, again, you just click on the double click on the whiteboard there, and then start typing. And if you're having problems, let us know so that we can help you, because this is an important part of the whole meeting. And it is kind of new technology for some. Believe me, we struggled with it a little bit in the beginning too. I will be moving some of your Post-it notes around to kind of group them. So if you see it moving somewhere, don't be alarmed. You can also make it bigger.
I don't see where we're supposed
to. Was there a question?
I don't see where we're supposed to type.
Oh, if you get a Post-it note, just start typing.
Did you double click?
Double click on what?
Did you click on the link that's in the chat? So the chat would be probably at the bottom of your screen, and there's a link that Michael put in there. All you have to do is click on that. It'll take you right to the website.
Are you visiting Bird?
Okay.
Everybody gets a different animal.
I don't. Okay, I can't do it. Okay. I can't do it.
And then you could put your thing in, your ideas in the chat, and somebody could put it over there if that's easier.
Yes. That's another option.
Right. So if you go to the chat, there's a space there where you can type a message, and you can just put your ideas in there as far as what you think the strengths are for West Point.
Right. So is everybody able to engage and provide information through a Post-it note now? If you are, I'm going to kind of continue to give you some ideas. Go ahead. Your question?
Well, I think she's still trying to do it. So,
Okay.
okay,
So,
go ahead.
so what do others see as West Point's strengths? And what are your tangible assets? What makes West Point unique? What are some things to build on in your community? What qualities may separate you from your competitors? Unique resources, unique qualities, what others might see as your strengths are all important notes to add into this component of strengths. Every time I get involved with one of these Rivertown reviews, I constantly learn something new. What are some things to build on? Unique resources. Fort Duffield, small local government, beautiful historic buildings, Lewis and Clark history. Longest open pool in the Ohio River, 130 miles. Property is less expensive than Louisville. Closest camping ground to Louisville. Small town, easy commuting distance to larger cities.
Hey, Michael, I've got that problem with several of them being locked. I don't know if you could tell that or not, and I don't know if you can do anything with it.
Which ones are those? These
The
ones
ones
at the bottom, right?
Yeah. Okay, that one's freed up.
Great, thank you. So as Andrea has gone through and kind of rearranged them a little bit, kind of winding down here on new Post-it notes coming in. I'll just, in another minute, we'll close this session out. Give anybody a last chance to add something as we continue to kind of group them a little bit. If we were in person, we'd be doing this on a whiteboard ourselves with Post-it notes.
Hey, Michael, can you increase the size of the screen? It's like the strength screen is about a quarter of the size.
How about that?
That's easier to read.
Strong military history, that's true. Community surrounded by rivers and forts. Military installations. Mountain bike, Facilities, Port Duffield. We're going to run out of space.
Yeah, we are. It's a good problem to have.
It sure is. It's just great to see all these strengths.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, let's let Andrea just adjust a few of them here, and we'll close out of this because we are pushing on our time limit with you folks. And Michael, are we able to do a 3-vote program so folks could pick their top 3?
Sure are, yep.
Okay, would you explain to us how to do that?
So I'll be doing a voting session. Let me just get the admin down.
We did try to kind of group some things together. It's hard when there's so many coming in, but you know, we've got some different groupings of like the river, some recreation, some history, and a lot of miscellaneous.
Right.
All right, so we're going to begin voting. You'll have 3 votes. And are we doing separate, Russ? You can only vote once per
Yes.
sticky?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And you will simply just left click the sticky note that you want to vote for. And you'll see a confirmation pink icon in that sticky. It's hard to see sometimes in the top right. That lets you know that you voted for that. If you want to remove a vote, say you accidentally voted for one, you just right click that same sticky and it'll give you your vote back. So let's go ahead and begin this.
This is everybody voting, even if you're not from Fort Knox or from West Point. This is everybody voting, right?
Yeah. Yes, we want everybody's input, please.
You hear that, Jim Mallory?
So again, vote for each one unique. Vote for 3. So don't vote for your favorite one 3 times, please.
Yeah, please use your 3 votes on 3 different Post-it notes.
Getting votes in. Still have some left to vote, I think. I'm not sure who is RTCA folks.
Yeah,
I am not voting, so.
I'm not voting either, so.
What's your animal, Russ? Maybe the goat?
I'm the visiting hippopotamus.
Ah. Okay, perfect. All right, then I think we're good here. So I will go ahead and end the voting session. And there's our results.
So
location.
You can start to see how this works, and then it'll get easier the next time we do it. You can see the results, so you know what you're working towards.
Yeah, and you scroll down to see all the votes. They're not all in the first category. You have to scroll down to see all the votes. Everybody able to see the results?
Very good. We'll be taking that information and using it when we do our report, and it will help to influence some of our recommendations.
Correct. To exit out of the voting, there's an X in the upper right corner. Click on that, please. And next, we will move to weaknesses. So Michael will move us to that particular quadrant.
Okay, we are going to weaknesses.
Yes.
We'll be
Internal origin weaknesses. So what are some of the things to overcome for West Point? What could be improved? Put your Post-it notes up there, please. What are some of the things your community lacks? What are some things that your competitors do better than you do? Where do you have fewer resources than others? And what are others likely to see as your weaknesses? Those are just some thoughts on how to think about the weaknesses. Things to overcome. What could be improved? Things your community lacks. Where do you have fewer resources? Things your competitor do better than you? And what are others likely to see as your weaknesses?
It's very encouraging that you have so many strengths and apparently not as many weaknesses.
That's right. Leadership challenges, lack of financial resources, flooding, absolutely. Decline in population.
Are we capturing in chat as well?
Oh.
I will look.
I was not, but yes, I can. So
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you, Andrea.
Sorry, I missed those strengths, people.
Access hindered by US 60. Things to overcome. What you could do to improve. Things your community lacks. Things your competitors do better than you. Where do you have fewer resources? And what are others likely to see as your weaknesses? We'll go for a couple more minutes here to please add any additional Post-it notes. And we'd like to do a quick vote on this section as well. Andrea, are you seeing items in the chat box?
Yep, I've got them all now.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Unfortunately, I can't go back and put things that are strengths in the strengths.
We have captured it in the chat box, so we will have the information. Thank you. Okay, we're coming to an end here with weaknesses.
Okay, give me 1 second.
All right.
I don't know how Helen did this. Okay, last one.
All right, great. Great, thank you. Well, Michael, shall we take a vote?
Shall. Okay, voting's now open.
Yeah,
voting for
please.
weaknesses only.
Yes. 3 votes, 3 different Post-it notes, please. If we were doing this in person, you'd be getting up from your chairs and going, putting little dots on the Post-it notes. But with our COVID situation, this is the quickest way we can still get you engaged, to get your ideas and your input on strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We'll also be using the same format for brainstorming. Are the votes in?
I think the votes are in.
Yeah, keep in mind that the people who maybe input in the chat didn't get a chance to vote.
I understand that, yes. Yep.
We should have encouraged that, but.
Right, yep. If you wish to identify in the chat what you think your top choices would be for this, please write it down or list it in. And the results are?
And the results. There's your results.
Okay.
All right. That,
thank you.
That blank weaknesses box is where somebody clicked on the white space instead of a Post-it note. Just
Right,
in case.
that's correct, yes. Yeah. All right. This helps tremendously, thank you. Next, we're going to go on to opportunities. This external origin. Michael will bring in that square. So begin putting your Post-it notes there of things to explore, underserved markets, an emerging need for your community.
And again, put your responses for opportunities in the chat and I'll put them on a Post-it note.
Great, thank you. Are there any trends that you should be taking advantage of in Westport? What don't we have that would make our community better? And any thoughts on how you can turn your strengths into opportunities? Things to explore, underserved markets, emerging needs in the community. Any trends that you could take advantage of? What don't we have that would make our community better? All ideas related to opportunities. And sometimes you can have the same item in different quadrants here. Sometimes, you know, strengths can be opportunities and weaknesses can be threats, and even an opportunity can be a threat, depends on perspective. Things to explore, underserved markets, emerging needs. What don't you have to make a community better?
It is a little hard to sort and input Post-it notes.
I understand, yes. I wouldn't worry so much about sorting, Andrea, if we can just make sure we get the information there.
Yep.
Okay, are we winding down and opportunities?
It's interesting that a few of these opportunities are sort of pandemic related, you know, the current trend towards staycations, the ability to work from home now.
Right, yes. That's true. Okay, we'll go another minute and we'll do a vote here on opportunities. Okay, let's begin our voting session. Thank you, Michael. Three votes, 3 Post-it notes, please.
And again, if you want to put your votes in the chat, I will vote for you. It's hard to read so many great opportunities and pick.
Yes.
Again, a good problem to have.
And this, if there's something comes up after we're done with our workshop today that you would like to add to the list of SWOT or brainstorming, we will provide that opportunity. We want to gather as much input from the community as possible. So if you have a thought afterwards, please put it into an email to us, and we'll be sending you some information on how to get back with us with additional feedback. So here's the voting results. Remember, you scroll down to see all the votes.
So we had 3 voters click on the white space.
Right, yeah.
When you're voting, try to make sure you're clicking on a Post-it note.
Okay. One more time, Michael. We're going to now go into threats.
Just 1 second, getting the screenshots.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll do this one more time with the SWOT analysis, and then we'll go on to another part of the program. As we start thinking about threats, you can now begin putting your Post-it notes in, please. Things to minimize, emerging competitors, what's out there that could harm your community. What threats do your weaknesses expose you to? Are there any changing regulatory aspects that are a threat to your community? things to minimize, what threats could harm the community. At this point, you're all pros using this software.
Right.
Things to minimize, emerging competitors, what things could harm your community, what threats do your weaknesses expose you to, are there any known regulatory challenges for the community? Thank you, everyone, for all your participation in this. This has been very, very helpful. And this input helps guide us in terms of our recommendations back to you. All right. Go another minute or so and we'll go into voting on the fourth component of the SWOT analysis, threats. See, we're still getting some input. The entire town is in a floodplain, limiting investors and financial aid. It's a very important component. All right, let's begin our voting. Michael's monitoring the votes as they come in, so he has an idea what number we have to achieve based on the past three, and then he will finish the voting. End the voting session.
One more vote left for the sleeping sheep, who is also the visiting elephant. Okay.
Thank you. Then you have to scroll down to see all the votes. Excellent. Well, we can exit out of the voting, and essentially we exit out of the mural at this point as well. Is that right, Michael?
That's correct.
So we can go back to the Zoom meeting. And I'm going to turn it over to David to give us a little bit more information about what he has discovered through the desktop review and the site visit. David?
Well, what a pleasure. Thank you, Russ. And I am actually a time filler as people are getting ready to do and organize the brainstorming, which is, I think, probably one of the most important pieces. Anyway, the desktop review, we looked at all the different online resources. 17 people filled out the survey, which really looked at 4 or 5 questions, trying to get a assessment about your online presence. And it was across the board. Some people thought it was very effective. A lot of posts around Fort Field, some on the river. It was mixed bag, to tell you the truth. There was some folks who did not find many mentions of West Point. I think one piece that came out pretty strongly is the need for additional promotion of the events, and several people specifically mentioned the upcoming Chautauqua event that's not posted yet or not readily available. Anyway, all those comments are online, and I've sent them around to several people, and they will be included in the final report. The site visit was just exciting. I had a wonderful time exploring the downtown. I think Monty is just a perfect historian for the small museum there. One of the things we did not get to see, and it was short time, but was a school. And in my conversations as we walked around West Point, that school site is so important to figure out. So here we're up at Fort Duffield, and while you're looking at these pictures of Fort Duffield, one of the things that people talked with me about while we're exploring that was the whole notion. Maybe you could stop sharing your screen for a second, Andrea. I want to show another picture here. And so people could not comprehend what Fort Duffield looked like beforehand. And it's just amazing to me to go back and look at what it was during the Civil War. Not one tree, actually I take it back, one tree right up here, left at the very top of the fort. And just this change over time was a fascinating piece. And so when we walked downtown, we basically walked right through these buildings. And I think this guy right over here is Janice's bed and breakfast right now. Just looking at this whole hill is just so different. And then right back up over in here is where the boat ramp is, which I'm so happy to hear that Fish and Wildlife came down and talked with you. 1861, sort of interesting, the bridges weren't here. So you had a little pontoon bridge. And so the bridges were all built after the war. We had a great visit, took all the photographs and shared those with you, and you're more than welcome to use those photographs for any purpose you want to. That's about all I have. We had a fascinating time both times, and looking forward to it. That's all I have, Russ. Back to you.
Hey, David, could you stop sharing, please?
Oh yeah, my fault.
Thank you.
And what other pieces did you, slideshows did you have that I should have talked about? There you go. 4th Street Park. There was some conversation about rebuilding this road right down in here, which was not one of our pieces at all, and having access. I think Gary mentioned that this beach right here used to be a sandy, it's still a sandy beach, but just perfect for swimming, and people used to hang out down there, and now it's a bit rough, but we had a great visit. Next slide, we'll see what's next. I just found, I did not see him. Can anybody give me a story of this guy here who's holding the print? I guess not.
Yeah.
Who is that?
Go ahead, Roselle.
That's a local artist, Frank Doyle. And he just moved back to West Point. He grew up in West Point, and he just moved back recently and bought a house, and they fixed it up on 3rd Street. And he does all kinds of paintings and drawings.
He might open a gallery at some time.
He very well might. A lot of his drawings his prints are down at the museum.
Well, how fascinating. And that here's some of the photographs of the museum that gets run, and I'm not sure if you can see, well, I don't see any photographs of or drawings of his, but it's the museum, Andrea and Russ. You missed it.
Actually, his prints are for sale down there.
They are?
Yes.
Well, I'll have to go look again.
I have one you can have.
But you do?
Yes, I'll send it to you.
Well, maybe we could raffle off one at Chautauqua Festival.
Okay.
Okay, head on to the next page.
Okay, so thank you, David. So given everything that you've heard from ORRT, from the National Park Service, from the Lewis and Clark Trail, the information that David shared about the Rivertown Review and the site visit and the pictures of your great little community. I'm so sorry I missed it. Someday I will get there. We're going to start to do some brainstorming here for ideas on how your community can capture not only outdoor recreation, but those cultural and historical features as well, and how you could use them to promote tourism and to maybe restart your community. You have a fresh opportunity to restart your community after a year off with nothing being normal. So given all that you've heard and the tools that we have available here, with the digital guide, with Lewis and Clark Trail, and the Rivertown Review program, the Ohio River Recreation Trail, what are some ideas for your community to enhance outdoor recreation opportunities and promote tourism? So we're going to take some time and do the same exercise that use the same tool that we were with Mural, but just some general brainstorming thoughts. This is meant to generate as many ideas as possible. There are no wrong answers. Wild and ambitious ideas are good because sometimes they stimulate other ideas. And I will be saying some prompts much the same way that Russ did while you were thinking of your Post-it notes before. The freewheeling is welcome. Criticism is ruled out. There are no bad ideas. And you can go to the chat to pick up Michael's prompt to take us back out to the internet. See if I can figure out how to get back there. Oh, Russ, you're muted. So I'm gonna stop sharing so that you can all go out there to the internet. The mural program is out on the internet, so it's not a direct function of the Zoom program. Okay. And Michael, are you gonna, or Russ, are you gonna be able to pick up what happens in the chat? If you are, I can't hear you.
I can pay attention to it, yes.
Okay. Wow, look at that. You're brainstorming away.
We're
All right,
working with pros now.
Yeah, they don't even need my prompts. Managing too many screens here. All right, so think about outdoor recreation and the river, because we are the Ohio River Recreation Trail, but those other things as well, as I said. We're harvesting these ideas and hope to capture them along with the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats in the report out that we will do for you. What ideas do you have for engaging your town with the ORRT or the Ohio River? Right there on your doorstep. How else could you engage either your residents or your visitors or your town with these things? How about ideas for how you can engage with the Lewis and Clark Trail in a more substantial way? What about ideas for outdoor recreation, whether it's kayaking or stand-up paddleboarding or those Voyager canoes that David Wicks is always traveling around in? What about bikes? What about hikes? What about multi-recreational? A lot of people who do some of these activities like to do other activities as well. So they might want to ride their bikes and put in with their kayak, travel downstream, go back to their bike. Yeah. What are some, oops, question?
Huh?
Was there a question?
I can't hear you.
Okay. What about some classic trip opportunities? What are ways that you can connect with the communities upstream and downstream from you? Either through recreation or your tourism opportunities.
Oh, her? Can you hear her? Oh. It's almost over, I think.
Well, it's not quite over yet, Annette. Not sure why she can't hear me. Can everybody else hear me? Give me a yeah, nod.
Yes.
Yeah?
I think she's talking to someone else.
Oh, okay.
Off mute there.
What about historical connections? Do you have any Underground Railroad sites in West Point? How about programming ideas, events, or tours, or walking tours, or history programs, or haunted pub crawls, or I always like to think outside the box. All trails lead to beer. Think in terms of short term and long term. And what are some quick projects that you could do very soon, like before the end of this summer, that maybe you could capture some of these, or do a pop-up, like a pilot project, and see how it goes. Nothing has to be set in stone. Give it a try. See how it works. Close a street, invite bikes. Okay, look at all these great ideas. Are you reading these and being inspired to think of other things?
Sometimes one idea leads to another.
So I noticed on the weaknesses that there were a lack of restaurants, and here it says again, have somewhere to eat. That's definitely an opportunity. Think about land and water. Yeah, Mike, what were you gonna say, Michael?
Just pointing out the get millennials involved and the association with artists and pop breweries.
Wow. There we go. All trails do lead to beer. Elect a dog for a mayor. Yeah, Rabbit Hash has got nothing on you. Okay. Michael, you want to start moving these into short-term and long-term?
Sure.
What I would like is, if you can take yourself off mute, if there's anything about this process or these ideas, while Michael's sorting them out into short-term and long-term so that we can vote on them. Is there anything about this process or things that you've heard that have made you think in a different way about your community? Or have you learned something that you didn't know about the Ohio River Recreation Trail and Lewis and Clark?
I'll chime in and say, I think the most disappointing thing is that we've invited the whole community and there are only 10 or 12 people here at the most. That apathy is a big part of our issues.
Well, we talked about that before we started, and I was thinking optimistically that there would be 10 people here, and 10 people from the community did show up. So it's not exclusive to your community. When you're talking small towns and people don't necessarily understand what this process is about, what ORRT is, why we would ask their opinion of anything. I'm sure they'll be quick to give it if you're doing something that they don't like. But you'll have more opportunities from here on out to engage them in other ways, using these ideas, using the report that we'll give you and some of those resources. Trust me, you're not the only town, big or small, that struggles with that. And I'm really pleased that you had 10 people on the call. So that's good.
Andrea, may I chime in and support you and what you're saying? Richard, if this was a large community, not throwing any stones, if this was Louisville, it would take a month, 6 weeks, or never to have this kind of chat in a large community. It just doesn't work. I have beat my head against stone walls for years preaching the values of Lewis and Clark in large communities. And when I get done, they take a yawn. Well, you're just one of 50 things that people can do in a large city. And that's all it happens. In West Point, it really does get somebody's attention. And you can benefit from it much quicker than a large community can. I see Brewster shaking his head. It's true.
Yeah. I just wanted to let you know there's 2 more people here with me. So we actually had 12.
Yes. I was counting some of those double people that I saw on the screen early on. So
make sure you have them put their name in the chat box and where they live. We want to keep track of everybody and follow up with them. If you can put your emails in there, that would be great. And Richard, I think that's a challenge for everybody, as everybody said. You know, it's apathy, I think, is a societal problem. But West Point has such a fascinating future in front of it. You know, I think one of the pieces that I saw on the brainstorming list was a whole artist community, and what a neat thing that if you could have 2 or 3 galleries, you know, it'd be a destination place. I think it certainly could be. I just loved your idea, you know, and if we have a minute or two, he has an idea for the sort of a economic regional hub for new small businesses in a vacant school building. I just think that has such a potential. I'm excited about it.
Let me ask, do any of the communities have like a small, I want to say like a committee that works on just the river review stuff? Do they develop something like that after you all give your final report?
They haven't yet. We've been trying to encourage them and do some follow-up to see how they use it, but some of the communities just received their report, so it's hard to tell what they're doing with it. And that's part of this Rivertown review process for us, is evaluating the work that we're doing, so how communities can better use the information and this whole process to their benefit. And that's one of the things that we're going to cover at the summit. We're trying to cover is what were the challenges and the successes, and how have you utilized this information? How was it beneficial to you, so that we can demonstrate that to the other communities as well.
You know, and that another way to look at it is every town is a bit different. For an example, up in Vevey, it really is the tourism office that is promoting it and handling it. In New Richmond, it was more of the planning and the county officers.
The city manager, right? Yeah.
The city manager, and then you have Aurora, which is really a economic development Dearborn 1. And so each town is different. And so when I look at West Point, it really is going to be the revitalization committee. So as a counselor, you know, as an elected official, you know, it'd make perfect sense for me to have the council formally adopt the plan that's going to be given to you and direct revitalization committee to review it and to implement as much as it can. And so I think it's that revitalization committee in West Point's case.
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking. Do we need the revitalization to take, you know, the initiative and go with this, or do we need a separate committee? And I'm thinking, you know, if I can be the part of the revitalization and you know, let them represent the river review, I think that'd be great.
Yeah, it strikes me that the more you have citizens like the revitalization committee in New Richmond, they have a similar citizens group that's working to revitalize New Richmond, and they have 100 posts a day on their Facebook page with excitement about what they're doing in the community. But the more the impetus comes from citizens basically urging you all as civic elected leaders to do things that would help implement an agenda that they played a role in developing. And maybe you asked them to follow up on this report. They reviewed it, came back and said, we love these 5 things, and we think we can take the lead on some of these, but we really need you all to take the lead on these others. But coming from the citizens, it just gives you, support and cover, and it's an exciting opportunity.
Right. Yeah.
David,
Another thought.
David, if I can add to your interest in that redeveloping that school, I made a note before we ever started today to bring up the subject of land and water conservation funding. Over the last 30 years, there has been so many opportunities, and people say, yeah, great opportunity. We don't have any money at all. I'm going to tell you a personal story. 2 years ago, I tethered myself to a telephone and computer and lobbied for the Land and Water Conservation and Great American Outdoor Act funding. We have it. It's a federal law. And that money in Kentucky is going to come from the Office of Local Governments. Don't ask me how to get to that money. I've got some personal opinions on that money, but that money is out there. And if we play our cards right, if West Point plays their cards right, that is a perfect opportunity to get your hands on the funding from Land and Water Conservation Fund to develop recreation and businesses in West Point. There's a lot of boxes and to check and a lot of things to do to get that money, but it's there. And I don't want to die and think, my God, I gave up 2.5, 3 weeks of my life and nothing came out of it. That money is for you.
And actually, just let you all know, Jim, to follow up your comments, but folks, just so you know that we have a good direct personal relationship with Commissioner Dennis Keene, who's from Northern Kentucky, and I helped him on his first campaign. And now he's the guy in charge of the local government operation for the governor out of Frankfurt. So to the extent you have applications, we can maybe help reinforce them with his office.
Wow.
There's a way when we want to do something, we can make it happen. Bruce, you and I need to chat about that offline.
All right.
To maybe clear that up a little bit, I've been in conversations with Hardin County Schools over the last couple of days. It's been very encouraging. So I think with just a little bit of negotiation and maybe just a little bit of help, outside help, we can secure that facility and start doing something with it.
That's just so exciting, Richard, and because I think it could be a fascinating community asset and museum or a big art gallery. It just would be neat.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make one more suggestion of what Jim was saying, and it's that Department of Local Government. That's who oversees the Land and Water Conservation Fund, and that's who Commissioner Keene is in charge of. One way into that is if the city of West Point formally adopts this plan, just said, yes, we formally received it, and then it becomes an actionable item that you can ask for funds through the Land and Water Conservation Fund. That's just one piece of local government, but just a thought.
Okay, so yeah, good discussion there, and there's been a lot more funding put into the Land and Water Conservation Fund in the last year or two, so that's looking very hopeful. And the resources that we will give you at the end of this, some of them are funding sources and other resources that you will want to tap into. That is the biggest part of the report out, are these resources that you can tap into. All right, so we want to be able to capture your wishes.
Can I just make one more question? And this is before we vote on the opportunities. And I didn't really see the redevelopment of the school as one of the priorities, but if somehow this process can support the town of West Point to fully develop the Beacon Elementary School, that would be significant, you know. And is it the new museum and moving it from the trailer down to the down to there? Is it a bigger focus on Lewis and Clark? But I just want to give that push to say an opportunity is that it redeveloped at that school.
Yeah, I did see it in the opportunities list. I'm not sure if it made it in being
Good.
voted on, but
Good.
okay. So Michael's going to take us into the voting process here again. It may seem like some of these are longer term, but I think you did a pretty good job of sorting them out short term and long term. And so you're going to vote on three different ones. Make sure you're clicking on a Post-it note, not on the blank space. 3 short-term ideas, 1 to 3 years, that you think should be pursued. That's not to the exclusion of everything else, but we're trying to see what rises to the top as supported ideas or desired ideas.
Is this in the chat? Are we supposed to click a new link? I'm not seeing it.
Yes, I can repost it in the chat for you.
So it should come up as an overlay on the screen, and then you click to vote.
Okay.
Ah, there we go. Okay. Did it come up for you?
Yes, thank you.
Are you able to vote?
Okay, is everybody seeing that? Everybody voting? There's a lot to read there. Lots of great brainstorming ideas. And some things that didn't appear on the SWOT analysis. These are some different ideas, so that's good. We will provide you all of the answers.
I'm sorry, I have a question.
Yeah.
How can I can't read any of it. It's too small. How do I zoom it back in?
If you just put your cursor over it and scroll.
Oh, okay. I got it. Thank you. So we're just doing short term right now, right?
Correct. Trust me, it took me a long time to realize that I had the control to actually increase the size on that. I was like, oh, I got the power.
I can't summon right now while I'm in the voting screen, so. Still have probably over half still to vote.
Okay, everybody coming up with 3 things? What do you think, Michael?
I'd say maybe 4 left that haven't voted yet.
Michael, I'm recusing myself from voting. I have a conflict of interest.
Gotcha. Okay, that's good to know.
Okay, I think we'll wrap it up now.
Sounds good.
Everybody wants to repair the boat dock. it sounds like that was already starting to be in process too. That's good.
Two people want a dog for a mayor.
There's a lot of surly things that could be said, and I will pass on all of them.
Wise choice. All right, that's great. Are you able to capture that, Michael?
Yep. We're moving on to long term.
Awesome.
And I will start a new voting session.
So these are projects that will take a little bit longer to do, maybe require more funding or a little more momentum behind them. And as we said, you know, maybe Michael didn't get these just right. Maybe some of these could be short-term things if the right opportunity comes up, or if there's something that is revealed within your community by somebody saying, oh, well, I wanted to open an art gallery and that could happen, you know, next month because you didn't know that it was even a possibility.
Looks like we had 16 people voting, but 13 in the Zoom call.
Oh, that's okay. A lot of people clicked in.
Yeah.
Multiple times. Are you seeing some votes come in?
I'm seeing some votes.
Tiny houses at rundown trailer parks. Good idea. Historic horse trails mapped and approved on public streets for anytime horse visitors. Is that a thing? I'm not sure I've ever heard of that.
It's a thing that, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yep, I can.
Oh, it's a thing actually, yeah, that's being discussed with equine trail advocates.
Oh.
They, as I've mentioned, they've been involved last year. They came in and marked trails they parked their trailers at the boat ramp, came across the pedestrian bridge, had the trails along the Ohio, the Salt and the Ohio River, and then we have had two private landowners who opened last year and will again this year their property for trail riding on that. So the idea is to develop a historic horse trail and incorporate like the historic marker database. People could come to town, they could go to the historic sites, and then certain days of the year have access to public property for longer trail rides. And then possibly developing land that the city has on the other side of Dixie. If we really wanted to bring the equestrians into like a conservation development type setting with horse trails and facilities, and get a developer to develop lots with that concept. That's all like the big pie in the sky, wouldn't it be fun thought.
Yeah, that's what brainstorming's about. Yep. Okay, so here's the results. Thank you, Michael, for putting that up since we're about out of time here. An artist community, walking bike bridge over the Salt River, always somewhere to eat. Yep. Short term or long term. Good. Okay. So lots of good ideas there. And you captured that, Michael? I guess you can do that.
Yep.
Yay! we got confetti, yes. So thank you all for your participation in that. I know that the software can be a little bit clunky for those of us who don't use it all the time. Trust me, we had many meetings to get this going, and we're still not experts at it. But in light of the fact that we can't be there in person, this is a really a good step for us to gather this kind of information. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen, I think. Hold on a minute.
What it's worth, I think you'll get more ideas on a virtual than you would have ever gotten in person, because people are afraid they're going to embarrass themselves with their ideas. At least that's been my experience. So you can do this kind of anonymously.
Yeah, that's good.
Nobody knows who the visiting bird was, right?
Right.
It wasn't me.
Okay, well, we really want to thank you for your participation. And see, there was not apathy on the call amongst the folks who are here. And we understand from listening to Annette in the beginning that it's often the same people doing the same work. And sometimes, you know, I think the saying is a prophet's never known in their own land. And so we hope that you'll utilize the information that we're going to provide you to present as an outside look at your community to the people in your community. So it's not just you saying, hey, we got this great idea. Hey, we really ought to develop our resources with the Ohio River and the Ohio River Recreation Trail. It's from somebody else on the outside looking in and helping you to create those opportunities. So we will be asking you to look at your town with fresh eyes now. I know that as soon as you get off of this call that you're going to think of 10 things that you wish you would have put in the chat or on a Post-it note. Capture those ideas, because we'll be asking you for what you've thought about since this meeting or in conversations with other people. So share this work with others to generate some enthusiasm and some interest. And we will provide you that opportunity to send more ideas. We'll be emailing you the SWOT analysis and a brainstorming list. We would like you to jot down what a perfect day in your community would be. And the other piece is, who are the people that you wish would have been on this call, so that you can begin to target them. Yes, you would have liked a lot more, but who are the decision makers and the people who can make these things happen? Because we'll be asking for those names as well. We will send you instructions on how to visit the two sites, the digital guide and the Lewis and Clark. And we will be preparing a report for you after we get that back. So we will be sending you out some homework, and we haven't had really good luck at people sending back what we request. So everybody's going to raise their hand and say, I promise to send back the homework, and we will have a better response than every other community that we've been involved with. Okay, I saw you raising your hand. It's recorded on the chat. So, so help us out. Help us to help you to get those answers. And I think that that's it. If David, you could capture the chat from the Zoom. I don't know how you do that.
I will do both, Andrea. And before everybody leaves, I just have one small announcement that we are having a large exhibit, the Kentucky State Fair, around the Ohio River from August 19th to the 29th. And it'd be wonderful to have a banner and or flyers for the Chautauqua event on October 2nd there. And so if one really wants to do that, the next 2 weeks is the time to let us know, and get a big banner printed by Russ so you could put it over top of Dixie Highway, 40 feet by 30 feet.
Yeah, we're looking into trying to see if we can get the artwork a little sooner and maybe get it made by the 19th. Is the 19th your setup day, or is that the opening day?
It's opening day, and the governor and our elected officials will be there on Saturday. That's they auction off a ham. If West Point really wants to do something, they get about $250,000 for this 10-pound ham every year at the state fair. It's almost a guarantee. It's the political breakfast, and then they come over to the exhibit. So Saturday morning, if you want to be a politician, we'll have the governor and a variety of other folks at our booth, and you can give them one of the flyers.
Must be one heck of a ham. That's all I got to say.
Every year for like 40 years, they've raised this money. I tell you, it's they're almost as good as Brewster as raising money.
All right. Well, in respect of everyone's time, since we've already gone 7 minutes over, I just want to thank you all. Be sure and keep the summit on your calendar. You'll be hearing more about that in the upcoming weeks. And thank you all. If you have questions or other answers, you can add them to your homework when you send that back in, or contact one of us. All right.
Thank you all for everything and everything you do for us. We really appreciate it.
It was really
Your pleasure.
Thank you.
See you on the next
Thank
one.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.